discussing where low self-worth comes from. All right. So if you're a high performer that finds himself always chasing the next high or always being so busy, being so stressed out in the hope that one day, you're going to feel good enough, one day you're going to feel happy, but that never happens. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And then that leads to more stress, feelings of low self-worth, feelings of inadequacy, and then not being able to form deeper connections with people as well. This is how it might be manifesting as. We're going to be breaking down a couple of the past experiences, your childhood experiences, which lead to such kind of beliefs of low self-worth, of chasing the next high, always being after something or the other, but in the end, in the core, not feeling like you're good enough or not reaching that part of true core happiness. All right. Then the second part of the video is going to be a process where I dive into helping you connect with that part of yourself, where you can really see what's going on inside the part of us which we have ignored for such a long time. All right. So there we're going to be connecting with that part, and now there are going to be a couple of guidelines for that. So when you watch the next video, there are going to be guidelines. Read those guidelines, get prepared for it, and then be in an isolated place. All right. Perfect. So let's get started for this video. So here's how it works. Our self-esteem gets formed by the age of 7. So the feelings of not good enough, feelings like I can do things in life, feelings like I can really go out there and I can be on my own, the feelings that people are not with me because I'm not good enough, or that I'm going to be lonely all my life. All the limiting beliefs that get formed about our self-esteem and our confidence, that mostly get formed before the age of 7. And which is why in our early years while we're going to school as well, that really matters. Also, it matters the way our parenting has happened, which is why it becomes very important for us to understand how our childhood was, to understand where we really come from, because those are the core beliefs that get formed at that time, and then we're not even conscious about those beliefs. It's mostly in the subconscious mind. And then we go ahead with that. So here's how that works. When we're born, a child is born pure, all right? He doesn't know how the world is, if the world is a safe place or the world is an unsafe place. He doesn't know that does he deserve that iPhone, or that he cannot hang out with a certain kind of people, or that when he approaches that girl, he's going to be rejected, or that that girl is out of his league, or even that is he from a middle class family, or is he from an entrepreneurial background, or even that is he good looking or is he not good looking, the color of his skin, the religion that he comes from, the background that he comes from, basically anything and everything he doesn't know. So those experiences are given to us while we're growing up, and a lot of our experiences get shaped by the way we're brought up. Let's break down our relation with our parents. So firstly, if we're born and we receive the love from our parents are always there for us. We're not neglected. We're always taken care of. Our needs are always met and things go smooth. We're not beaten up. We're not scolded at. Our parents are there to protect us. No accidents happen. Nothing bad happens. Then we're going to be growing up with a healthy self-esteem, feeling like we're amazing and going out there to take on everything in life. But that's the idealistic point of view. In real life, that doesn't happen. Part of the reason is because our parents, they might not be that aware. They might not be that aware and they might not be that conscious while bringing us up. Because the thing is that when someone hasn't received something, they cannot give it back. So if our parents grew up in a dysfunctional household, they think that's how parenting is. And then that's how we're brought up. Now, it becomes also important to stop this cycle out here, because that also becomes our idea of parenting. And then when we grow up, we feel that everything is perfect, everything is amazing, and this is how we're supposed to parent. So then we pass on those same dysfunctional behaviors to our children, and we really don't want that happening. So healing ourselves becomes the first and the most important priority for us. Number one, so that we can feel good enough and we can really enjoy this life. And secondly, if we have offspring later on, or if we already have offspring, we do not pass on this thing to them. So the first step starts with healing ourselves and looking at how our experiences are and what is it that we're holding on to, and then releasing that part of us, whatever we're holding on to, and then replacing it with better behaviors in place that are really serving us right now. So when a child is growing up, there are a couple of experiences that really shape his life. We're going to cover 3. Number 1 is going to be about abandonment and neglect. Number 2 is going to be about physical abuse. And number 3 is going to be about school trauma. Okay. So number 1, talking about abandonment and neglect. In an idealistic scenario, is the parent's job to give love to the children. Due to certain reasons, our parents might not be there with us. Okay. Maybe one of the parent has died. Maybe the parents are separated. Maybe there's a divorce in the family, or maybe the parents have their own illness that they're preoccupied with, which might result to them not being there for our formative years. Also, if both the parents are working and they do not have enough time to spend with us, we might not get the core emotional needs that really form us. And then that leads to emotional and developmental wounds that manifest in our life in different forms, which is what we're talking about here. So when we're growing up, if one of the parents leaves, we do not have the understanding that maybe there's some other problem that's happening out there, or maybe our parents, they're fighting because there's something wrong with them, or maybe a certain experience, like we're sleeping at night and we hear loud noises from the other room. Now we get into a state of fear. We do not understand why our parents are fighting, and we start to think to ourselves, this is how the mindset goes. We start to think to ourselves that if my parents, my caregivers, who's supposed to take care of me, are fighting among themselves, and if something bad happens, who's going to take care of me? Because we need a mother and a father both at that time. So if separation happens or divorce happens, if one of the parent leaves, that triggers abandonment in us. Abandonment, because if one of the parent leaves and there's no one to take care of me, I might just die. So it's a matter of life and death to the child. Now, the child cannot understand things like divorce or death or anything. So what he does is he puts the blame on himself. All right. Or if he hears his parents fighting on the topic about himself, or if there's something wrong happening in the family, right? Mother and father are fighting, or the mother or father leave, or if, let's say, you're waiting outside your school and your parents get a bit late to pick you up, maybe 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, then it instantly triggers that panic, that abandonment, that maybe my parents have left me. And why would they leave me? Here's another thing that you need to understand. When we're born, our parents are gods for us. They're amazing. They're the most amazing human beings ever. And our survival literally depends on them. Okay? So we need to do whatever they tell us to do. And then at the same time, we love them so much and we're going to be really loyal to them. So if anything bad happens, we will never be blaming our parents because of that blind loyalty, that hidden loyalty towards our parents, which is a beautiful thing. But then at times, it leads to detriment as well. So because of the loyalty towards the parents, and because we absolutely love them, we will never blame them for something bad when we're small. So when we're growing up, if we see something bad happening, we're gonna unconsciously take the blame on ourselves. And we're gonna be like, oh my God, I must have done something wrong. Oh my God, I am not good enough. There must be something bad with me, which is why I'm making my parents fight. I'm the core reason behind my mother leaving, or my father leaving, or my mother being late. It's of course because I'm not good enough. And then on top of that, we might be receiving messages. Maybe the parents saying things like, you can never do anything in your life. Okay. Or being like, you're always spoiling things around. Or being like, since the time you're born, you've just annoyed me. Or being like, please leave me alone, I'm working right now. Or please leave me alone, I'm doing something right now. You're always after my life. Okay. So that makes the child feel that he's not good enough, which is why he's not receiving the love from his parents, which is why his parents are always at work. Or even when his father comes home on a Sunday, when he goes up to his father to play, the father is always busy or the father is tired. And he feels that it's because he's not good enough, and which is why the father is not giving him the love. That's where our core assumption of I am not good enough starts. And then for a while, we're going to not be blaming our parents, all right? But then that gets into the subconscious mind that my parents are amazing and I can never blame them, and we're always going to be loyal to our parents. So for us to survive, either we become a people pleaser, okay? We do everything that our parents tell us and we take the blame on ourselves. Or secondly, what we're going to do is we're going to start rebelling. We're going to be like, I don't need this love at all. And that's how we live our life. So anytime we're meeting someone, we're not able to form deeper connections, even with a girl or even with the friends. Why? Because we feel that if I open myself up, I'm going to receive the same love, which is dysfunctional, which is abusive in nature. That's number one. Number two, let's talk about physical abuse. Now, our parents might have a lot of things on their mind. So let's say I'm like 3 years old. I see a phone out here, right? This is the phone. I see a phone out here. I'm like, oh my God, there's a light in here, all right? I see that. I'm like, what's happening in this? I put it in my mouth because at the age of 3, we're very experiential, very, explorative. Do you call that? Is that a word? So we want to explore and everything. We want to touch it. We want to put it in our mouth. So we put it in our mouth, we see, and then we see, oh my God, let's see what happens with this. And then we throw it away. Now, this is an iPhone, all right? You and I know how much it costs, but the 3-year-old child doesn't know how much it costs. And it's just a thing for him. It doesn't really matter, all right? So the parent sees that, gets really angry, comes on to the child, starts screaming, slaps him. And then the child starts to cry, tells him that now you're crying to make me feel bad. So that's a very traumatic experience because the child doesn't understand why he's being hit. The child loves his parents and his parents are hitting him. Why? He doesn't even know that it's just the phone. Why am I being hit? And then now he cannot even trust his parents. And that will lead into more relationships in life where trust issues are going to be formed. Also, now he's scared. That's where the fear also comes in. So fear has come in. He doesn't understand what's happening with him. He starts to feel guilty because he did something wrong to his parents. And then he starts to feel like, again, he's not good enough. Now, I hear you asking the question, that bro, Sometimes you gotta hit the child. Sometimes the child doesn't understand. Otherwise, ऐसे तो वो सारे phones फेंकता रहेगा. If you don't teach him, if you don't slap him, he's gonna throw phones away. He's gonna break things around. And then, I know something bad might have happened while I was growing up. But then those experiences in the past, and they really helped shape me. Okay. And it was very important for me to be hit by my parents because that's what made me today. All right. I used to think the same thing. Let's break this statement down as well. Number one, it's a very wrong belief. Okay. The thing is that the child can be taught about stuff through love. Also, when we're hitting the child because he threw a phone away, we're telling him that the phone, just a piece of junk, all right, just a piece of fucking junk is more important than the child's life. All right, I know you're thinking about that. Doesn't matter. We've got like, what do you call it? We've got screen guards and everything here. So it makes the child feel that a piece of fucking junk is more important than his life. That's not cool at all. We need to be valuing a child more than we value a phone. We need to be valuing our relationships more than we value this. So if a child is throwing things around, we need to teach him, we need to discipline him, but not by physically hitting him or screaming at him or scolding him at that time. Because what that does is that makes the child feel like he's a piece of shit. And then the love is conditional. So in conclusion, there are loving ways to discipline the child. Be like, all right, hey, baby, I love you, but this is a very expensive phone. Please do not throw it out again. All right. And then also at that stage, at 3 years of stage, is the parent's responsibility to keep the phone away and keep the expensive things away. All right. Moving on. Point number 3. Let's talk about school. So in one way where the child starts to feel inferior at school is by social comparison. He goes to school. He sees that he's a different color. There are people from different diversities. There are people with different economic standards. And then there might be people who might be teasing others as well, and he might be teased for maybe being a particular skin color, maybe a particular background, about something, about his height, about his weight. He might be called nicknames like Fatso, like Golu, or any kind of nicknames he might be given that makes him feel really bad, or like Kalu, or discussing where low self-worth comes from. All right. So if you're a high performer that finds himself always chasing the next high, or always being so busy, being so stressed out, in the hope that one day, you're going to feel good enough, one day you're going to feel happy. But that never happens. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And then that leads to more stress, feelings of low self-worth, feelings of inadequacy, and then not being able to form deeper connections with people as well. This is how it might be manifesting as. We're going to be breaking down a couple of the past experiences, your childhood experiences, which lead to such kind of beliefs of low self-worth, of chasing the next high, always being after something or the other, but in the end, in the core, not feeling like you're good enough or not reaching that part of true core happiness. All right. Then the second part of the video is going to be a process where I dive into helping you connect with that part of yourself, where you can really see what's going on inside the part of us which we have ignored for such a long time. All right. So there we're going to be connecting with that part, and now there are going to be a couple of guidelines for that. So when you watch the next video, there are going to be guidelines. Read those guidelines, get prepared for it, and then be in an isolated place. All right, perfect. So let's get started for this video. So here's how it works. Our self-esteem. Hey guys, welcome to the process. This is going to be a guided imagery meditation where we'll be using some visualization, some forms of imagery where we're going to be putting you into a different scenario and helping you see things and helping you meet that inner part of yourself that's not been taken care of for so many times. The part of you that is storing a lot of pain inside, the part of you that you've ignored all your life, where all of our subconscious memories and everything lie. This is going to be around a 10, 15, 20 minute meditation around. And for you to prepare for this, I want you to sit down or maybe lie down, whatever's more comfortable. Just make sure you don't sleep. All right. If you're sitting down, just close your eyes, sit down on a chair or sit down in a folded lotus position, or you might just lie down. Then another thing I want you to do is turn off your lights and be in an environment where you're allowed to express yourself fully. Where if you're in your room right now, make sure that you're comfortable enough to laugh, scream, maybe even cry. Okay. If anything comes up, we want to be able to express it fully. All right. So also I want you to take the decision that you will be 100% present with the process, with the meditation, with my voice, and let me guide you, and try to completely feel whatever you're feeling. Then, while you're lying down, also have a pillow next to you. At some point in the meditation, I will be asking you to hug that pillow, okay? Which is why we want it near you, and make sure you do not open your eyes to get that pillow. So get it so close to you. Now, if you're in that environment or lying down position and aware and wide awake during this time, whenever you're ready, you may close your eyes and let's get ready to go on this journey of meeting that inner self of us, of accessing whatever is inside us, and to meet our inner child. For us to start, I want you to take 3 deep breaths inside, starting with your nose for a count of 4, holding for 2, 1, 2, and then exhaling for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Taking another deep breath in, 2, 3, 4, holding for 2, and exhaling for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now another deep breath in, 2, 3, 4, holding for 2, and exhaling for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep breathing with every breath that you take, every in breath and every out breath. You find yourself being more relaxed, more comfortable, more ready to begin this journey. Now, I want you to imagine walking down a road, a big road. When you keep walking on this road, at the end of the road, you can see a tunnel. Slowly and steadily, you walk towards the tunnel. And slowly start entering this tunnel. As you pass through the tunnel, on the other side of the tunnel, I want you to imagine your dream nature scene, your ideal scenario, the place that you love. This could be a place in nature like mountains or the beach. This could be a place somewhere on the planet Earth. In this nature scene of yours, as you enter, you can see a lot of children playing, just going around here and there. Some are on the slides, some are painting, some are laughing, running, playing. All these little children that you see, children of different ages, different physical features. You notice how you can clearly see all of them. And then, amongst all these children, there is one that you can really connect with, that you can feel, that you can recognize. Look at the child. See what he's doing. Try to feel what he's feeling. Is he happy? Is he sad? Is he hurting? What does this child make you feel? Trust your intuition right now and allow yourself to feel. Just connect. Connect with your heart. You can fully feel whatever he's feeling right now. Now, I want you to start walking towards him. As you go closer, get on your knees and look at him in the eye. And introduce yourselves. Hello, I'm from the future. And I am your older self. I've come to meet you. I'm sorry I couldn't come a bit earlier. But then now I'm here. I want to make it up to you. Notice what he's really feeling. Tell him, I will take care of you and give you anything that you need. And I will protect you from anything that might be harmful. You can tell him, I love you, my inner child. You matter to me. I can see your pain now. I can understand you. It wasn't your fault. I will always love you and be there for you. At this point, you can go closer to him and ask if it's okay to hug him. And in this moment, you may pick up your pillow and hug the pillow, hugging your inner child, giving him all the love, telling him that I love you, you're beautiful, I will always be there for you. I can see you now. I can feel your pain. I accept you as and how you are. And now that I'm here, you can do whatever that you want to do. I will keep you safe. Whatever you're feeling at this point, let it out. If you feel like crying, don't hold yourself back. If you feel like screaming, if you feel like laughing, you can go ahead and do that. You're completely safe in this moment. Just let go. Just let go. Tell him that he is worthy of receiving all the good things that he desires. Tell him how glad you are to meet him. And then now you're here, you'll always be there for him and always take care of him. He's important to you. Just keep hugging the child and be there and connect to him. Feel what he's trying to tell you and give him all the love. If there's anything else that you want to say, you can go ahead and say that as well. Tell him that you like him just the way he is. You'll never leave him. He's safe with you, and he can always count on you. Tell him that his needs are okay with you. And just stay. At this point, I want you to ask what his favorite thing is. What does he absolutely love? Ice cream, pizza, it could be a chocolate, or his favorite video game, or that one thing that you always wanted, always desired as a child, but could never get. Now, tell him that you have a gift for him. And whatever it is that he wanted, you can give it to him. Notice how his emotions change. Notice how that makes him feel. Notice his joy, his happiness. Can he start to trust you now? Notice the connection. Now, tell him that you'll have to go. But you will be back soon. And if at any point he wants you there or wants to talk to you, he can just think about it and you will be there. Because of that connection that you have with him now. And because of the promise that you'll never leave him now. Tell him that meeting him was the best day of your life. And that you'll meet him again. I want you to hug him one more time. The tightest hug that you've ever given anyone. And if he's okay, you can kiss him on his cheek and say goodbye. Promising to meet again. Now imagine yourself leaving that scene back into the tunnel and coming back into this room right now. Feeling your surroundings, feeling your body, feeling your weight, being aware of your breath, and at the count of 3, slowly get ready to open your eyes. 3, 2, 1.